me. Oh. Hey there. Didn't see you guys come in. Welcome to my shop. This is my bench. Bench number 5-ish in this place. This is a 59 Telecaster that we're going to use today. Not a real one I built. Today at Reverb Electric, we're going to be doing a repair on this here Accutronics tank. This is a 81 maybe? I'm not sure of the year. I don't think it's the 60s though. But it had a pretty unique failure in that this is the output transducer, the little gizmo that turns, I'm not used to the depth here, that turns the vibration of the spring's mechanical movement into electrical. And the way that works is there's two little magnets suspended on these really fine wires with hooks on the end, and they dangle around in between these laminations. So this is kind of like a laminated core of a transformer, and these little magnets are dangling in the center, and as the springs move from the other transducer, which wiggles them, these guys kind of rotate around in little circular patterns, and because they're magnets, they create a field, and that's converted to electricity by this transducer here. Anyway, what's neat about this is that if you see, I don't know if this will focus here, this is very burned. What it looks to me like what happened, it looks like there was a high voltage or current, a lot of power fed into this, and this is the output transducer. I don't know a practical way that that could happen. Hook it up to the speaker output. I don't know, maybe. But it's all burned up, and the area in the tank around it was all burned up as well. So this thing failed in a fairly violent way. I've fixed a lot of these tanks at Reverb Electric, and I've not seen that yet. Anyway, via some clever type punch tools, some eyelets, I was able to drill out and remove that transducer and reinstall one from this here generous donor tank, also an Accutronics 70 something, I think 71. This is a 1971. And that one had already donated some pieces to one of my twin reverbs. I think it was probably the 67. Just a little metal hook at the end that holds the spring was all it needed. So let's fire this up. That's the real point here. We're going to use the Princeton, and this tank belongs to our friend Evan Delaney, and this amp came from our friend Evan Delaney, so I think it's a good test partner. I'm just going to bring up the voltage here. I still haven't serviced this amp. Done nothing with it since the last video other than play it, listen to it, and love it. Think about its future and its place in my logging fleet. It's not much of a logging truck itself, but it's kind of a small size amp for me. But it's like a pre-runner for the logging fleet. Check out the course before the big ones come in. But it sounds really great, and it's sitting in front of the other, so it's easier to get to. Hence, it's a good candidate for today's work. So first, let's just give a listen to the stock tank in this, what I think is a 78 Princeton. reverb. Okay, so that's the tank all the way up. I mean, the amp's down at like not even 2, close to 2. But the reverb's at 10. I think there's a Gibbs tank in this. I think I looked. Maybe I didn't look. I think all my 60s Fenders have Gibbs tanks in them and have come with them. Those are generally my preference. I did this comparison. I don't know if I ever made a video of it, but I recorded about 2 dozen 60s and 70s tanks from Accutronics and Gibbs, and I think like one MOD and on modern Accutronics, and compared them, and like by far I liked the Gibbs. It was like the Gibbs tanks, and they had some variation, and there were a few that I liked a lot and some others that I liked also, but I liked all of them far more than the others. And for that kind of that sloshy, whatever you want to call it, splat. And this one's not doing it quite as much, and I'm not sure if it's the amp, because I'm not familiar with the amp, or if it's the tank. That deluxe reverb does it like to ridiculous amounts, as does my super reverb, the earlier one, the 66. And it just is this splashy, springy, splatty, liquidy, lush, sloshy surf reverb greatness. I mean, it's like the thing that you think about when you think about 60s Fender reverb. So I like Gibbs tanks. I guess that's my only point there. Well, let's give this one a try. I'll turn that down, and that way we can keep the volume and all the settings exactly the same without having all kinds of chaotic noises when I swap them. Red is right. That's how you know where the plugs go. Unless you're me and you're putting this one on, or red is left, because I know that those wires are wired up backwards. I really kind of hate these 70s wires for use in amps, but they're good for testing. It would be nicer if they were like stuck together as like a zip cord, you know, pull apart like a modern thing out of your stereo. And they're not. And I'm pretty sure the reason that they're not is you don't have a right and a left. Like you think if you look at this at a glance, you don't have one that's got red on both sides and one that's got gray plugs on both sides. Each one has one red and one gray. I don't know, but I'm thinking it was maybe a little bit cheaper to order 1 million of the same one than 500,000 of each. And that's why we have that. And so they, you know, they split apart and they get sloppy, and they do get kind of stiff over time. I don't have a lot of complaints about them, I guess. Let's hear this. So we were at 117.1. There we are. And it's dropping a little as the heaters come up and draw current. Totally normal. And we're going to put it right back to 117.1 if we can. That's a pretty specific number. Alright, I'm going to call that close enough for YouTube. works. That's nice. It's a little bit tighter than the one that's in it, but it's got a little bit more of that slap back delay maybe than the previous one. I'm actually gonna have to go back and watch this and judge it myself. Maybe skip back and forth a little bit. I kind of like this one better. Maybe. I gotta hear him again. But I do like it. That's a good point. One of the things I really like about the Gibbs tanks is that they have a lot of delay to them. So it's not just a reverb of, but it's got that like a, you know, stuttering kind of like slap back. You're in a concrete stairwell kind of thing, surfing in a warehouse with a concrete stairwell. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to it than that. Sounds good to me. I've kind of already covered how they work, but one side, which is this side, has a coil that acts as a magnet and wiggles the springs. The other side has a transducer with a steel core wrapped around the two magnets that these springs are sitting on that convert that movement of the wiggling magnets back into electricity, and then it feeds it back into the amp in a Fender circuit, at least in parallel with the main output section of the amp, or pre-phase inverter, still part of the output section. And it mixes it in, and there's mix resistors inside, and you can adjust that. And if you want, although Fender really kind of got it perfect. But yeah, that's basically it. The reason it reverbs and sounds springy is because it's doing exactly what you might think. The sound is kind of flowing from one side of the spring to the other. That takes some time, and then it hits the other end, and it comes back like a wave and back and forth, and it regenerates. And the springs, oh here, a lot of people don't know this. I can show you the springs from this tank. I hope that's focused, and I have no idea what the depth of field is here. It's probably not the ideal lens, and I've got a really kind of like cinematic shallow depth of field thing going on. Trying out this camera in here. But this spring is not stretched. It's not longer because it's old or stretched or worn. They are intentionally made to be different sizes, and they're 4 springs. You'll see that too, each pair. They've got these little connectors in the middle, and these change. The ones on these are little eyelets, kind of like the ball end of a guitar string. The ones in this tank, the springs are just soldered together. There's no eyelets there. And I've seen different size eyelets. So that is an extra piece of mass. You know, I don't know how that works into the physics of it to convert to sound, but all those little differences kind of create some complexity. I'm kind of inclined to swap one spring and see if having one with that eyelet and one without makes it even more complex. I would probably do the longer springs with, just to make the mass difference further apart. It's something I might try, not on Evan's tank. I'll try it on one of mine. I don't want to mess his up. Not that I couldn't fix it. So yeah. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? You got to be kidding me. Can you hear it? Yeah, you can.